She called 911 because I installed solar panels. Not a rave, not a meth lab, just clean energy from the sun. Next thing I know, two patrol cars show up because my roof was too industrial looking for her precious OA guidelines. The HOA said my energy system violated visual harmony. I gave them a fraud audit, a state investigation, and a community revolt powered entirely by sunlight. Ever had an HOA cross the line? Share your story in the comments. If judgment had a perfume, it'd smell like Gretchen Flaxley and her lavender-scented clipboard. I was halfway up my ladder, tightening a bracket on panel number 4, when I heard gravel crunch like it owed her money. There she was, marching across my driveway in orthopedic heels with the urgency of a mall cop chasing a shoplifter. She clutched that clipboard like it contained national security secrets, and her expression said, "I'd report my own mother if her hedges were non-compliant." She squinted at my roof and said, "Sir, that equipment violates visual harmony standards." Visual harmony. As if my solar array was going to give the entire cul-de-sac vertigo. Now, I've worked in municipal planning for 15 years, I know a real code violation from a fabricated one the way a plumber knows the difference between water pressure and bull. I politely explained my install was fully permitted, structurally sound, and shocker, 100% legal. She sniffed and flipped to some tab on her clipboard like she was consulting the Dead Sea Scrolls. Then she dropped this gem, "Last year we had a fire caused by unauthorized electrical equipment. Total loss." Her voice had the warm concern of someone reading you your own obituary, except it was all fiction. And I had the permits to prove it. See, in Gretchen's mind, a solar panel was one burnt toast away from a 4-alarm blaze. She spoke about neighborhood aesthetics, like she was curating a museum, not managing a suburban HOA with vinyl fences and cracked sidewalks. I asked her kindly to show me the rule I was supposedly violating. She smiled like a cat with a court summons in her paw and said, "Rule 15B covers unauthorized modifications visible from public sightlines." I'd read the HOA bylaws cover to cover. Rule 50B didn't exist, at least not in my copy, but I let her walk away. Still clinging to her clipboard like it could ward off truth. That night, I sat on my porch and watched her silhouette pacing in front of her window, like a Hallmark villain in search of a hobby. I sipped my tea and thought, if solar panels make her this unhinged, wait till she finds out I compost. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. 8 words that told me we'd passed the point of petty, Stop the installation or face consequences. Not a neighborly note, not even a warning. That was a declaration of war from the Queen of HOA Theater. Some folks see solar panels, others see insubordination. But a clipboard doesn't make you Congress. But that wasn't the real power move. Because the next envelope I opened didn't come with sunshine. It came with a threat dressed in gold foil. They say paperwork never lies, but that cease and desist letter from the Forest Glen HOA looked like it was drafted by a toddler with a gavel. It cited Rule Horn 4Z, which, according to bans all solar panels that disrupt the neighborhood's visual serenity. Visual serenity. My panels were matte black and sleeker than a government cover-up. So I did what any man does when he smells bureaucratic baloney. I locked myself in my office with 3 cups of coffee and the HOA handbook, ready to play legal whack-a-mole. 30 minutes in, I was knee-deep in bylaws and suspiciously large font sizes. There was Rule 9A about trampoline heights, Rule 10B on mailbox personality limits, Rule 11C forbidding aggressive wind chimes, but Rule 420Z, it didn't exist. Nothing even sniffed past 11C. It was like someone glued extra pages to the back of the rule book using invisible ink and Audacity. Even my cat, Jasper, looked offended. I turned to my filing cabinet like it owed me answers and dug out every HOA update from the last 5 years, just to be sure. That's when I found it a digital voting record from last March. There it was in black and white. Proposal 14Z had been shut down harder than a toddler's bedtime rebellion. 48 votes against, 12 in favor. And one mysterious abstention that I'm pretty sure was Gretchen herself. That's right. The same woman who threatened me with fines and eviction had set it a rule that the entire community had publicly slammed just a year ago. This wasn't governance. It was fiction in a pantsuit. Now, If you've never worked in municipal planning, let me explain how rare it is to find something this sloppy. It was like watching someone forge Bible verses in Comic Sans. Gretchen had taken the rejected rule, slapped it on HOA letterhead, and mailed it to me like a subpoena. My neighbors had no idea she was enforcing rules that didn't legally exist, and the worst part, most of them were too intimidated to challenge her clipboard mafia. But I had proof now, and I had a plan. Except the next morning, when I went outside to start work again, my ladder was gone. Not borrowed, not blown over, gone. In its place, tire tracks in the gravel and a note in my mailbox that simply said, "Respect the rules or lose the roof." That's when I knew this wasn't about code compliance anymore. This was a suburban shakedown. When in doubt, read the fine print, and if it smells like fiction, follow the trail back to the author. So I borrowed a new ladder, locked up my toolbox, and installed a security camera. Because if Gretchen wanted a fight, she just picked the wrong solar cowboy. Hit like if you've ever been targeted by a rule that doesn't exist, and type rule warn 4Z who. If humiliation had a Yelp page, me getting swarmed by cops while holding a socket wrench would be a 5-star review. With an elite badge for public shame. I was halfway through tightening the mount on panel number 5 when I heard the sirens. Not faint, not distant, loud enough to make a mountain echo blush. 2 patrol cars fishtailed into my gravel driveway like they were chasing a fugitive. Officer Rodriguez stepped out, glanced at my ladder, and radioed something that sounded way too serious for a guy installing eco-friendly roof bling. "Sir, we received a call about a fire hazard and unsafe electrical work," he said, voice flat but firm. I climbed down, hands up like a solar-powered criminal, while every neighbor within earshot invented reasons to be outside. Mrs. Park watered her already drenched begonias. Carl pretended to fix his hose for the 5th time that day. Phones were out. Whispers were flying faster than Wi-Fi. And there I was, safety goggles, harness, me and all, posing for the neighborhood gossip reel like I'd just set my shingles on fire. After presenting every permit, inspection sign-off, and laminated county certification known to man, Officer Rodriguez gave me that. "I'm just the messenger, look. Mom said this installation poses risk to the whole block," he muttered, motioning toward Gretchen's house with the same disdain you'd reserve for expired milk. You could practically hear the HOA fax machine warming up for a new violation. The irony, this came from a woman who once deep fried tilapia under her carport with a propane tank and a prayer. Just when I thought I'd have to defend myself with blueprints and righteous indignation alone, Walt strolled up, retired civics teacher, honorary porch mayor, and keeper of the unofficial community truth vault. "There's never been a fire in this neighborhood, son," he said, waving a file of typed-up HOA history. "Gretchen's been using that story since 2017. Last emergency we had was Cheryl's Ruba getting stuck in a throw rug." He wasn't kidding. He even had a spreadsheet, And suddenly the officer's face shifted from procedure to suspicion, like a man who just realized he was tricked by a fairy tale. You can't fight fire with fiction, but you sure can light up liars when the facts come with timestamps. If Gretchen lied about the fire, what else had she conjured with that magic clipboard? There's a special place in paperwork hell for people who fake expenses and call them community protection. And apparently, Gretchen had built a summer home there, fully financed by the HO budget. It started when I visited the county clerk's office, still red-faced from my cop-filled construction intermission. I requested 3 years of Forest Hollow HOA expense reports, and what came back looked like a toddler's attempt at money laundering. There it was, $90,000 labeled under Safety Consulting, paid to a firm called Apex Integrity Solutions, which, fun fact, had a website made on a free trial and a contact email that bounced. Now I don't know about you, but if your entire business presence can be crushed by a dead link and a HOA's lookup, chances are you're not exactly saving lives. A little digging revealed Apex was founded by Troy Wexler, who just so happened to be Gretchen's cousin by marriage and certified in hazard auditing, whatever that meant. I called the county inspector's office to ask about these audits. Their response: "We've never heard of them, and we sure didn't order any." Turns out Gretchen had been creating emergencies like a drama teacher prepping for state finals, except with more zeros and fewer rehearsals. The deeper I dove, the uglier it got. That 12,000 roofline radar analysis, she claimed, was mandatory. It was a rug order from a boutique interior store in Denver. That 18,000 emergency lighting inspection. It paid for new chandeliers in her home office, which, to be clear, is visible from the street and now glows like a midlife crisis in crystal. The spreadsheet didn't lie. It practically screamed, "Me." And for someone who cited neighborhood aesthetics, every time I breathed near my solar rig, she was embezzling like it was a bake sale with a bank account. But here's the kicker. Remember, Rule 14Z. The imaginary law she used to try and shut me down. It matched the date of a $700-500 payment to Apex for a code harmonization review. That's not a real thing, by the way. I cross-referenced the HOA meeting minutes. There were no votes, no approvals, just a handwritten note that said, "G needs funds. Use emergency line item." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a petty tyrant with a flair for drama. This was a full-blown side hustle disguised as neighborhood safety. She wasn't enforcing the law, she was printing it in invisible ink. Receipts speak louder than reputations, and spreadsheets never flinch under pressure. So I sent one email, just a nibble. "Does anyone know where the safety audits are stored?" 5 minutes later, Gretchen replied with a novel. She was rattled. and I hadn't even opened the nuclear folder yet. When someone insists they're saving the community, check their Venmo, me. Especially when that someone hosts an emergency HOA meeting with catered shrimp skewers and a PowerPoint titled, Restoring Order. A personal mission. Gretchen rolled in like a budget Cruella with a Bluetooth headset and a binder thick enough to stun a cow. She stood under a banner that read Unity through compliance, and the irony nearly gave me a nosebleed. Right off the bat, she banned me from speaking, due to hostile tone in prior communications, which is HOA for he caught me lying and I'm panicking in lowercase. Enter Walt, our retired civics teacher turned reluctant hero. He stood up slowly, like a cowboy in orthopedic sneakers, and asked for the floor, on behalf of the accused. The audience gave him the kind of silence usually reserved for bad news and plot twists. Gretchen tried to block him with B-Law Clause 7A2, but Walt pulled out his own copy of the HOA charter, annotated, color-coded, and probably blessed by a notary. Actually, he said, there is no 7A2, just a long string of creative fiction. Then came the turning point. Walt calmly projected the email chain showing Rule 140Z had been rejected 47-9. Rejected. Not passed, not amended. Rejected like a vegan dish at a Texas BBQ. He even had screenshots of the vote tally and the rejection notice stamped by the county clerk. The room stirred like a pot about to boil. That's when Gretchen broke. She slammed her clipboard down and barked, "You are all peasant, grade thinkers." And suddenly, the HOA meeting turned into live theater. It was like watching a Stepford wife self-destruct in HD, perfect posture, perfect hair, and the verbal meltdown of a villain realizing the townsfolk brought pitchforks and Wi-Fi. And here's the kicker. The very rules Gretchen had been citing were written by me during my stint on the county's zoning reform board. The bylaws she'd weaponized like a squirt gun full of lies, I helped draft them, and I'd brought the signed legislation. The woman tried to accuse the architect of not knowing the floor plan, The irony nearly voted itself into office. The louder someone yells about standards, the more likely they're hiding a receipt trail and running out of whiteout. But that was just the spark. The bomb, the one labeled fraud, embezzlement, and family discounts was still ticking quietly in my folder. Stick around because next up, we flipped the spreadsheet upside down, The only thing Gretchen feared more than my solar panels. A spreadsheet with receipts. She brought a binder to a truth fight and left with matching bracelets. By the time I clicked present, her face was the color of expired yogurt. Slide 1, the 90,000 in safety consulting. Slide 2, her cousin's LLC with an address that matched her shoe subscription. I didn't need a microphone, the silence was loud enough to hear shame set in. When I showed the duplicate invoices, same date, different made-up services, someone in the back muttered, I painted my shutters 3 times for this woman's fantasy landscaping. Her defenders shrank like dollar store inflatables in July, Turns out people get less loyal when their HOA dues bought foot massages and Fox crisis reports. One neighbor stood up, voice shaking with disbelief, and said, my fence wasn't even broken, She just said it looked defiant. A murmur rippled through the room like a popcorn machine of regrets, and when I revealed the shell company her cousin ran out of a UPS store, someone gasped so hard a cough drop hit the floor. Then came the finale. Gretchen leapt up, shrieked, this is a coordinated attack from anti-community elements, and tried to unplug the projector. But before she could reach it, 2 officers walked in like the punctuation to a run-on scam. A woman near the window said, I hope they charge her by the lie. The officers asked her to step aside, and with the clink of cuffs her reign ended, not with dignity, but with receipts and whispers. When the facts are tidy and the math is mean, even a Karen can't spreadsheet her way out of cuffs. She left in handcuffs, but her story didn't end there, and neither did mine. Stick around, because what came next was even better than revenge. You know what really powers a peaceful neighborhood? Not electricity, accountability, and maybe just a pinch of shared trauma with a clipboard tyrant. They say sunshine is the best disinfectant. Well, after months of being HOA hostage, we cranked the blinds wide open and aired out every dusty lie Gretchen ever stuffed in a 3-ring binder. Walt was elected HOA president in a landslide so dramatic, it could have used theme music. He didn't campaign with signs or promises. He showed up with a 3-hole punch and a Costco receipt for honesty. At his first meeting, he passed out glazed donuts and copies of the new rulebook, which was 10 pages shorter and 10 IQ points higher. The new motto, no fines without footnotes. Someone embroidered it on a pillow. Gretchen's old rules got shredded faster than coupon mailers after payday. Her personal favorite, Rule 9G, lawns must reflect positive energy, was now confetti in the community compost bin. I finished the solar install that week. No 911 calls, no fake inspections. No, you're breaking aesthetic law 14Z, shouts echoing from Gretchen's patio. Just blue sky, black panels, and the quiet hum of justice generating kilowatts. My power meter spun backwards so fast I thought I was time traveling. I half expected to see my younger self in the mirror brushing his teeth with Nadav VDA. It was beautiful. Meanwhile, neighbors started sharing stories like old war vets swapping scars. One guy stood up during an HOA open mic and said, "She fined me for putting my trash bins out 2 minutes early." 2 minutes? That's less time than it takes to microwave regret. Another neighbor claimed she was cited for planting intimidating foliage. She had roses, actual roses. Apparently, Gretchen believed flowers could glare. It wasn't a meeting anymore, it was group therapy with snack trays. Walt didn't just listen, he documented. And boy did the stories pour in. The couple in Lot 12 was forced to repaint their house after being accused of paint mood inconsistency. A retiree in Lot 8 spent $2,700 redoing her mailbox because Gretchen said the color felt defiant. Defiant to whom? Benjamin Moore. What really shook people wasn't just the abuse. It was the relief. It felt like taking off a weighted vest you didn't know you were wearing. The HOA meetings became less about fear and more about snacks. Someone brought homemade salsa. Another guy brought a 6-pack labeled Gretchen's Tears. We laughed like we were detoxing from decades of repression. Then came the moment Walt rolled out his masterstroke. Bylaws rewritten from scratch on recycled paper, no less. It was the first time in history someone read an HOA document and smiled. Solar panels. Encouraged. Garden gnomes. Celebrated. Noise complaints. Now had to come with video proof and 3 eyewitnesses not related to the complainer. It was less, Big Brother, and more, with the neighbors. And as for Gretchen's cousins, safety consulting firm, dissolved. Her nephew's $5,200 mailbox surveillance camera proposal, cancelled. Her reign of HOA terror was over. Her name became legend. But not the kind you engrave on plaques. She was more like a fairy tale villain who got fired from the story halfway through the second act. We even erected a memorial of sorts, right at the community clubhouse. A plastic lawn flamingo, wearing a tiny blazer and clutching a mini clipboard, sunglasses glued to its beak. We named him Little Gretch. Kids took selfies with it. One guy dressed it up in a prisoner jumpsuit every Halloween. And me. I finally slept. The deep battery recharging kind of sleep you only get after surviving a year-long HOA horror saga. I'd wake up, sip my coffee, look at my spinning solar meter. And smile like a man who paid off his metaphorical mortgage to fear. I wasn't just saving on energy, I was restoring peace to the neighborhood. A clean roof might trim your utility bill, but a clean conscience, that kind of energy is off, grid and priceless. But my favorite part wasn't the refund, it was the knock on my door 3 months later, from someone I never expected to thank me. Type, Sunlight Wins, if you're rooting for one more twist, and make sure to like and subscribe, because this HOA saga isn't done baking. The woman who tried to block my solar panels now lives next to a wind turbine and a foreclosure sign. Gretchen's prized house, formerly the neighborhood's most aesthetically curated eyesore, sold for the $96,000 less than asking. Apparently, buyers aren't wild about properties with a fraud trial in the Zillow description. Her name became a realtor's punchline. Charming 2-bedroom, formerly ruled by a clipboard tyrant. HOA history available by subpoena. No one even wanted her azalea bushes. One buyer asked if the gavel came with the garage. Meanwhile, I got a gig consulting for other highs, not for the pay, but because chaos has a scent, and it's usually lavender and lies. First stop, Maple Ridge Estates, where the president fined a veteran for having a front porch flag that clashed with the shutters. That man cried when I told him his flag could stay and the president couldn't. It turns out, once you expose one paper tyrant, others start to unravel like holiday lights in a bitter divorce. Back in Forest Ridge, Walt added a sunlight clause to the new charter. No HOA restriction could contradict state or federal energy laws. I helped draft it while eating oatmeal cookies at Hank's kitchen table, which had more law books on it than some courthouses. We even got a thank you letter from the state energy office, complete with a sticker shaped like a lightning bolt. Hank wore it like a medal. It was the first time in years that rules felt like protection instead of punishment. Then came the kicker. 3 months later, a letter showed up. Padded envelope, legal handwriting. County Correctional Return Address. Inside a handwritten note from Gretchen. Dear Albert, it began. I understand now how wrong I was. She asked me for 2 things. A character reference for her parole hearing and a recommendation for solar panel installation. I read it twice just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating from too much satisfaction. She even included a brochure she'd picked up during jail orientation. Apparently the women's facility is partially powered by solar. Ironic, isn't it? She wrote, turns out, I can't block the sun from in here. She signed it, sincerely, former President Gretchen. Not even joking, She underlined, former, twice. Me, her last official act as an HOA officer. Signing her mugshot release form. Some of the neighbors wanted to throw a party the day her house finally sold, me, but we settled for a backyard cookout where Walt grilled burgers and someone played Here Comes the Sun on loop. The HOA meetings now include community birthdays, a book exchange table, me, and a giant laminated banner that says, "This is a clipboard. Free zone." You know something's healed when the group ladder doesn't have any bitterness left in it. And me. My solar system feeds energy back into the grid, my consulting work's fulfilling, and I've got peace, purpose, and a porch that faces due east. Every morning, I sip my coffee and watch the panels do what they were designed to do, quietly, efficiently, and with absolutely no need for HOA approval. I call it revenge, but renewable. Power only corrupts when we let it hide behind paperwork and polite silence. Call it out, power up, be your own panel of resistance, And that's how a simple rooftop project turned into a full-blown HOA takedown, complete with fake rules, phony audits, jail time, and one very ironic request for a solar referral. What started as a petty power grab ended with Gretchen powering her prison lights with the same technology she tried to outlaw. But the real win? It wasn't just the panels or the peace. It was the people. Neighbors who stopped whispering and started showing up, a community that went from fearful to fearless, and the reminder that sunlight doesn't just power homes. It disinfects corruption, The lesson here: don't let the loudest clipboard in the room write your story. Know your rights. Read the rules. And when someone tells you you're breaking a law that doesn't exist, break out the receipts, Because when everyday folks like Albert stand their ground, entire neighborhoods wake up. If this story made you laugh, think, or shout, finally, at your screen, then hit that like button to show you stand with the permitted, not the petty. Drop a comment and tell us your wildest HOA moment, especially if it involves fake violations, nosy neighbors, or backyard justice. And make sure to subscribe because the next story, it might just be the one that makes your HOA president sweat.